Okay, thank you everybody for coming. We're doing chapter 6 of Ethics of the Sages of Pirkei Avot, and we're going to begin from the chat that Sylvia put on the chat. It is going to be Mishnah 10, Mishnah 9. So scroll down to Mishnah 9. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. Do you hear an echo with that, Sylvia, or is it just me? You do hear a little bit of an echo?
I think Stephen should mute, maybe.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Okay, I'm gonna try to mute Stephen. Okay, there it goes. Okay, much better. Okay, so let me share screen. And Sylvia, are you able to read this off the screen for us?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Said, okay.
Or you can read it from your own chat, from your own link, either way.
Oh, okay. Said Rabbi Yossi, the son of Kisma, once I was traveling and I encountered a man. He greeted me and I returned his greeting. Said he to me, Rabbi, where are you from? Said I to him, from a great city of sages and scholars am I. Said he to me, Rabbi, would you like to dwell with us in our place? I will give you 1,000,000 dinars of gold, precious stones, and pearls. Said I to him, if you were to give me all the silver, gold, precious stones, and pearls in the world, I would not dwell anywhere but in a place of Torah. Indeed, so is written in the book of Psalms by David, the king of Israel. I prefer the Torah of your mouth over thousands of gold and silver. Furthermore, when a person passes from this world, neither silver nor gold nor precious stones nor pearls accompany him, only Torah and good deeds, as it is stated, Proverbs 6:22. When you go, it will direct you. When you lie down, it will watch over you. And when you awaken, it shall be your speech. When you go to it, it will direct you. Thank you. I lost my place. When you it will direct you in this world. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, 6 lines from the bottom.
When you go, it will direct you in this world. When you lie down, it will watch over you in the grave. And when you awaken, it shall be our speech in the world to come. Also says Haggai 2:8, mine is the silver and mine is the gold. So says the Lord of hosts.
So the last little section was a little bit Talmudic there, but from Proverbs, like around 9 lines to the bottom, as it states in Proverbs, no, the line before it, nor precious stones, nothing will accompany you. The only thing that will accompany a person in death is only Torah and good deeds, right? And as Proverbs states, when you go, it will direct you. The it is Torah. When you go, the Torah will direct you down to planet Earth. When you lie down, it will watch over you, referring to when you pass away. And when you awaken, referring to the resurrection of the dead, it shall be your speech. So this is Torah. So Torah is our protection. And yeah, when you awaken, it shall be our speech in the world to, or here it says, when you awaken in the world to come. Yeah, in the resurrection. So, but what is not being escorted with a person during their life, or rather what is not being escorted with a person when they pass away, is all the gold and precious stones and everything else. And you see, as rabbis, including myself, when we officiate at funerals, it's something that, you know, people like to say, he's such a great guy or she's such a great woman. And it's not the gold and the silver that escorted her, but it's her Torah or her family or her children. You know, that's the real stuff in life. Okay, so I want to dissect this story a little bit. I'm just going back to the beginning, what you just read. And there's a few layers kind of hiding behind this. And that's what basically we're going to focus on today, is this Mishnah, Mishnah 10, the 9th Mishnah of the final chapter of Pirkei Avot. So let's take it from the top and I'll kind of dissect this. We'll do this line by line. So Rabbi Yossi, the son of Kisma, I want to look up exactly, give me a second, when he lived and where he lived. So let's see what my book here says. Who is this guy, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma? Okay, so it says over here, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma lived during the times of the destruction of the Second Temple. The Second Temple was destroyed 70 AD, so he lived around there. He foresaw and prophesied the brutal murder of Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan by the Romans. We know that there were the 10 martyrs that we read about in Yom Kippur, and he already prophesied that there are going to be some major bloodbath to the Jewish people, but even more so to the great Jewish leaders. And he prophesied this. He was not included, by the way, of those 10 martyrs. He actually was well connected with the Roman leadership, but he knew things bad were coming. Rabbi Yossi himself not only was not affected, so to speak, and was not one of the martyrs, but it says actually over here that he was honored himself by the Romans, whose nobles attended his own funeral. How do we, the Jewish people, know this? Because in Tractate Avodah Zarah, which is one of the volumes of the Talmud, it states there on page 18 that the Romans attended his funeral as him also being a nobleman. So not only was Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma well connected, he wasn't a martyr, and on the contrary, they respected him. It says in another volume in Talmud, in Sanhedrin, that he was capable of performing miracles. So clearly he's a big macher, and apparently used such powers to help his fellow Jews when he was able to. So he's what we call a big knacker, a big Jewish leader. And there's some other stories that my book here is stating about Rabbi Yossi, but that's not important for our discussion right now. Okay, so this Rabbi Yossi, the son of Kisma, so he wrote, or he said, once I was traveling and I encountered a man. He greeted me and I returned his greetings. Basically, he said to me, shalom, and I said back, shalom. This person said, Rabbi, where are you from? I'm on the fourth line. Rabbi, where are you from? And I said to this guy, this gentleman, I come from a great city of sages and scholars. So this guy says, Rabbi, maybe you'll dwell with us in our place. Because again, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma is a famous dude. He's a big rabbi. So this gentleman, we don't know, of course, who this gentleman is, but whoever this gentleman is or the gentlewoman. So he said to Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, Rabbi, why don't you come? You're on the road, you're traveling. Come to our city. Come and dwell with us in our place. And this guy says, and I will give you $1 million. You have a lifetime contract with a pension plan. 401k, the whole thing. Obviously, this is a lot of money. And I said to him, even if you give me $1 billion, I only dwell in the city of Torah.
This
Yes.
guy, unnamed guy he's talking with, does
Yeah,
the
go
guy
ahead,
know
Stephen.
who he is? Because what the sense is that if the guy's heard of him and knows who he is because he's so famous, then he wouldn't be asking, where are you from? Because he'd know. And if he hasn't heard of him, why is he offering him all this money to live in their place if he doesn't know who it is and whether it's somebody worth that much money?
Very good, very good. So we're going to dissect this, Stephen, in our discussion tonight. And there's a lot of, I don't want to say holes. Hold on. So it's not clear to us who this person is. And it's not clear to us, if he knows Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma or not. So you're right. So this is what we call up for interpretation. Welcome aboard, Uzi.
Hello.
Uzi, thanks for joining us. So we're doing Pirkei Avot. I know it's very late for you. I'm surprised you're on the line here. But we're doing Mishnah Tet, the 9th Mishnah of chapter 6. And we're discussing this episode of Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma.
To listen to you, I'll stay up late.
You're a good man. I'm just muting you, Uzi, unless you have a question. This way, we don't have the background chatter. So once again, Stephen, some of the English gets lost with the Hebrew. But what's interesting is the Hebrew, which says, one time I was walking on the road and a man, in the English it says, a man greeted me. In the Hebrew, it does not say a man greeted me. In the Hebrew, it says, upaga bi adam echad. again, it doesn't say a man greeted me, but it says upaga bi. I'm on the second line on the Hebrew side. Paga almost means like accosting. A guy didn't omar. It wasn't a guy said to me, shalom. If I saw you, Stephen, or if I saw my buddy Uzi, I would say, Hu amarli, he said to me shalom, or Hu sha'aloti, or he asked me. But in this case, we use this term upaga. Upaga is sort of a negative, almost this verbal accosting, a bit of a pushy kind of guy. And this guy was pogea. Sometimes we use the word pogea in Hebrew, where like he harmed me, or he verbally accosted me. But in English, of course, we're not picking that up. But in any case, this guy somewhat was pogea. He somewhat accosted me, and he said shalom. But obviously, he said shalom, so he's not such a bad guy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said shalom to me. He didn't accost me and say something bad, right? So I go to court. I go back to my crowd, my people. I say, this guy was, he kind of bumped into me. He kind of jostled me and to get my attention. And he said, hi. He said, shalom, Rabbi. So I'm just, these little nuances in the Hebrew kind of sheds a little bit of light. And I told him shalom, and I gave him back shalom. The reason why that's somewhat important here in the context of this story is because if Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma is as great as a man as we're making him out to be, because he's a Talmudic scholar and he's a rabbi, and he prophesies at the end of the Second Temple that there's going to be 10 martyrs coming our way from the Romans. And he's so great that the Romans felt that he was such a great rabbi that they attended his own funeral, according to Tractate Avodah Zarah. If he's such a great rabbi, why wouldn't he say hi and shalom first to another Jew? Why is he walking on the road and some guy says hi to me and then I said hi back? Doesn't seem too respectful. I don't like when I walk the shul and I see a religious man and they think they're going to get away with just passing by. So I always startle them and I say, Shabbat Shalom. And then they return Shabbat Shalom. And I always feel bad for them when they don't say Shabbat Shalom back to me. So I really raise my voice and I say, Shabbat Shalom. And then they have no choice when they're walking. And of course they say, Shabbat. Okay, that's some of my own hangups. But in any case, something is awry over here with the Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, one of the Jewish leaders who is spoken about thousands of years later, who doesn't say hi to somebody and he waits almost for this other guy. So apparently this other person
Should give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe the person is deaf and can't hear you.
Yeah, that's always a possibility, Stephen. Yeah, maybe he didn't know how to use the options on Zoom. So that is the term why Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma is using this terminology of upaga. He gave me shalom. Basically, I was kind of being careful. Another issue we have over here with this Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says, one time I was walking and traveling on the road. Why is it important for this context of the story that he was walking on the road? Why couldn't it be that he was shopping at Ralph's? And a guy came up to me and said, hey, Rabbi, do you want to work and be the rabbi of our city? Why couldn't it be that he was studying Torah in his office and some guy accosted him or knocked on the door 1,000,000 times, like I get at my house after 20 cell phone calls? Mendel, can you do X, Y, and Z for me? Why was it important for Yossi ben Kisma to write that one day when I was traveling, I encountered a man? And he's basically, shedding light over here that this man somewhat accosted him, jostled for his attention, gave me shalom, I gave him back shalom. Okay, in any case, that we're continuing over here, just breaking down, dissecting the story like a surgeon. And then he said to me, Rabbi, where you're from? And I said to him, I come from a great city of sages and scholars. So he said, Rabbi, would you like to dwell with us in our place? And I'll give you $1 million. And Yossi ben Kisma says, if you give me $1 billion, I'm not living other than a place of Torah. And the question here is, how did Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma know for certain that this guy and the town that he's representing to recruit Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma to be the rabbi of that town? How does Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma know that that town doesn't have any Torah learning? That there's no rabbis, that there's no prayers, that there's no synagogues, that there's no yeshivas? Why is Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma so convinced before he even hears what city this person comes from? Basically, he says, have a nice day. even if you give me $1 billion, I'm only going to live in a place of Torah. I would not dwell anywhere but in a place of Torah. And then he starts to quote these verses from Psalms. So that's another sort of sketchiness that we're seeing here in the story. And again, the Hebrew sometimes sheds some light. So I want to point your attention where my mouse is. I'm still on a share screen. On my lead, this gentleman, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On my lead, this guy told me, Rebbe, Rabbi, Ritzoncha, would you like, or is it your will? Basically, I want to pay you that you should live Shetadur, Imanu, with us, Bimkomenu, in our town, let's say whatever it is in Pittsburgh. And Avani Etain, and I'm going to give you $1,000, $1 million, whatever it is. So how does Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma know for sure to respond so negatively to him by stating, even if you give me $1 billion, have a nice day? Because again, the Hebrew, what does this guy say? He says, Bimkomenu, Rabbi, would you like to live in our city in our place and be a rabbi in our place? And be a rabbi and allow us to be void of Judaism. This is how the commentary views this word Bimkomenu, instead of us. You be the Jew instead of us. You represent Judaism and let us be. I won't say, but there's another synagogue. Of course, I would not say. I won't even say what city it is. But these are some wealthy people. And they hired a rabbi. And the rabbi comes in on Shabbat. These people only come in on Shabbat. And this group is not, I hate to say, I don't want to say Orthodox, but whatever. It's people that I know, not from this city. And the show basically is closed on Shabbat. And they identify as religious people. And basically, the rabbi is the pulpit rabbi. He comes and gives his talks on Shabbat. And these 20 wealthy guys, they basically pay the salary. And they're not bad people. They're all in business. They have beautiful marriages, beautiful kids, but it's lacking. They basically hired the rabbi to be in their place. They're a little bit off the hook. They gave the $100,000 for the rabbi. And, you do your thing and we'll do our thing. Rebbe, Ritzoncha, is it your will that you'll dwell Bimkomenu instead of us or in our place? And that's when Rebbe Yossi ben Kisma said, I'm sorry, even if you give me $1 billion, I'm not going to make a move like that in my life. There are many rabbis today where they like to take the $400,000 package and the 401ks and the pension plan. And if the congregants step up, fantastic. And if not, whatever. But Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, he does not operate that way. Now, the question is, how was Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma so convinced that this city really wanted to be void and, so to speak, negate their obligations from being religious, and they really just want to hire this pulpit puppet rabbi from being a rabbi in their place? How was Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma so convinced? And the answer is because Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma wondered, how on earth does a city allow an individual to be prepared to hire a rabbi without any interview? They didn't vet this rabbi out. They didn't bring him down to the city and have him speak for 3 Shabbatot and give 3 different sermons. How we all know that's how these communities and these synagogues operate first, before they hand out a salary. And here, this guy is prepared to give $1 million to a guy that's going to be a rabbi that no one else approved of. And that is why it was important for Yosef ben Kisma to say, I was going on the road. It's not like this guy, Stephen, came to Yosef ben Kisma's office in his yeshiva with his thousands of students, and he's trying to recruit this great rabbi. He found this rabbi on the road traveling. And he's prepared to give him a full salary package. And he says, you be the rabbi Bimkomenu in our place, and we're good to go. And that's why it also says in the second line of this paragraph that this guy just sort of accosted me and he gave me shalom. He didn't say nicely, hey, Rebbe. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said this guy sort of jostled for my attention, sort of verbally chapped me, grabbed me. Which is another reason why Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma did not open up the dialogue and say shalom first, answering the question we had at the beginning. Because Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma smelled that there's a rat. I don't say I want to say a rat, could be a little bit harsh. He smelled that something was awry over here. He was trying to keep to himself. So that's what we get when we sort of are breaking apart this paragraph. And I'm going to read it now from the top, and what kind of the commentary that we were just speaking about will kind of fill itself in. So said Rabbi Yossi, the son of Kisma, once I was traveling and I encountered a man. He greeted me and I returned his greetings. He said to me, Rabbi, where are you from? And I said, from a great city of sages and scholars. He said to me, Rabbi, would you like to dwell with us in our place? Like we said before, in our place / instead of us. Bimkomenu, I will give you $1 million of gold, precious stones, and pearls. So I said to him, if you were to give me all the silver and gold, precious stones, and pearls in the world, I would not dwell anywhere but in the place of Torah. Which also answers the distinction between this guy, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. And if you remember, just 3 weeks ago, we were reading in the Torah portion with Balak and Bilam, who was a non-Jewish king and a non-Jewish prophet by the name of Bilam, who was being pushed to curse the Jewish people. This non-Jewish prophet Bilam said, even if you give me all the money in the world, I can't curse the Jewish people unless God says so. And of course, everyone asks, so what's the difference between Bilam, the wicked non-Jewish prophet, who's stating, even if you give me all the money in the world, I can't curse the Jewish people, and Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, who said, even if you give me all the money in the world, I'm not traveling to your city. And the difference is because in this case, this gentleman offered first $1 million. He tried to bribe him. And Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma answered, even if you give me $1 billion, I'm not going to do it. And in the case of Bilam, however, no one spoke about money. Bilam initiated the money discussion. He said, even if you give me all the money in the world, I can't do it. Who was ever speaking about money before with Bilam, with the non-Jewish prophet? So that's how we felt that he was already a corrupt individual from the get-go. Whereas Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, he was being bribed initially, and he said, I will not take the bribe. Now, the only thing we don't have clear in the story is, how does the story end? Sorry, guys. Sorry. How does the story end? All of Yossi ben Kisma says, even if you give me all the money in the world, I won't go to your town unless there's Torah. So we have two questions over here. Why couldn't Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma be like a Chabad rabbi and say, you know something, there's no Torah in your town, but as a Jewish rabbi and someone that cares about Jewish outreach, I'll go to your town and get your people more inspired. I'll go to Bakersfield, like my good buddy rabbi is doing, and he's going to elevate the crowd. How many thousands of Chabad rabbis go to different neighborhoods, and they know from the get-go, not only is it not a religious town, but they know that the people are not interested in religion, and the rabbis go. So what kind of Chabad rabbis, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma? And furthermore, we don't really know how the story ends. And there's actually a debate. Where was Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma when the story happened? Where did he die? And where did he serve as a rabbi? It's a little bit sketchy. So in doing a little bit more research that I've done, it seems that Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma lived in Rome, which somewhat makes sense why the Romans gave him a lot of honor. On the other hand, there's another piece of Talmud that says there's a small town of Rome, which is near Tiberias in Israel. Just if any of you care just for the history and the geographic locations of the story. And we also know that Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma is buried a half hour from Tiberias, near Meron, near Shimon Bar Yochai. So that's where he ended his life. So it's possible that there was a town of Rome in Israel where Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma eventually went to elevate this crowd and elevate this community. It's not quite clear. We do know that the stronghold of Jewish learning, the Brooklyn, so to speak, the Jerusalem of after the destruction of the Second Temple, eventually made it down to Tiberias, which somewhat fits in with this little town, Rome, near Tiberias, that the Talmud says. So it's possible that he actually did go there. We're just not 100% sure. We actually, as history, we just don't know exactly. So he could have, the story seems to end that he didn't follow this man. The story seems to say Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma said, have a nice day, even if you give me $1 billion, based on everything we said. That this guy said, be a rabbi instead of us, and we won't have the obligations of Judaism. You do it for us. That's how the story seems to be. But since some people, the commentators, were asking, how could Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma give up on a town because they weren't religious? So that's why some commentators are trying to basically shed light and say that indeed he did go, and he went to a small town of Rome near Tiberias, and he did elevate a community. And so it's not quite clear, but the story could go either way. Okay, so that's the story. That is the beginning and that is the end. Any questions from my buddy Stephen or Sylvia?
At the beginning of the story, he said, I am from this place of great learning or whatever. Does anybody know why he left that place?
Oh, very good. Very good. So give me a minute. Give me a second. Give me a second. Okay. I wrote some notes down for myself. There is a related Rabbi Yossi who they say could be the same guy. There's a Talmud in Sanhedrin 98 that says there's a Rabbi Yossi of Caesarea. They say this may be the same guy. A preacher who discussed ways of bringing people closer to Judaism. So we have something in the Talmud that speaks about a Rabbi Yossi who did go out of his way to bring Jews who are not involved. Okay, hold on. And they called him this Rabbi Yossi from Caesarea. Perhaps he's the same rabbi of Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma who moved to Caesarea. That's what they call the Rabbi Yossi of Caesarea, to establish a place of Torah, where we find him surrounded by students concerned about Jewish future and redemption. Hold on, I'm gonna get to your thing in a minute, Michael, Stephen. We can now see a new light. Rabbi Yossi does not spurn the invitation from this guy. On the contrary, he responds, quoting relevant scriptural passages to his sponsor that wants to give him $1 million. And this was actually Rabbi Yossi's charge to the community even before he set foot there. The topic could have been of his first sermon. Even if you give me all the silver and gold, precious stones and pearls in the world, I will dwell only in the place of Torah. Torah is the best investment. Money isn't everything. Let's turn this place around. It's possible. Okay. The congregation wanted to spend big money on a prestigious rabbi listed in the who's who's. They knew they wanted to get this Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma, who would impress the mayor, the city, the media. They wanted to buy, give me a second. Okay. Where Talmud in Yevamot describes a highly intense halachic discussion that occurred between the rabbis in Tiberias. This highly intense dispute, says the Talmud in Yevamot, which is a volume of the 63 volumes of Talmud, unfortunately resulted in a Torah scroll being torn apart. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was there. It's this Talmud piece of story says he was there. And it says it was in Tiberias. I just said it was this Talmud says this story happened in Tiberias, which resulted in the Torah being torn apart because these Jews fighting, these rabbis or these Jewish people fighting. The Talmud says Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was there. He became very upset and he commented, I wonder if this house of study will not be transformed into a house of idolatry. The Talmud concludes, and so it happened, that this place in Tiberias became a horrible place. Not the whole city, but that house of study. Which this may be why Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma finds it necessary to preface his narrative of his story by saying, I was once walking on the way. Why was it so important to mention he was walking on the way? Why couldn't he simply say, once a man approached me? Why did he have to say he was walking on the way? Because he was getting the heck out of Tiberias. He was getting away from these people. So we see, Stephen, that he did come from a place of Torah. He did come from a beautiful city of Tiberias, but he was getting the heck out of here because it was a terrible, terrible fight that erupted amongst the community members and the community leaders. So this possibly is the time when he walked away, because you also have to ask yourself, why is Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma walking? Do we hear that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was walking down Rodeo Drive? Why was this rabbi walking down Melrose or Beverly Boulevard? He's one of the great Jewish leaders, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. But perhaps this explains it, because he was walking away from the community, because they were really slugging it out verbally with each other. He wanted to get the heck out. And that is when this person saw the great Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma on the road. Because you can also ask yourself, if Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma only wants to hang out in the city of Torah, then why did he leave Tiberias in the first place? So this better explains he was getting away from this great city of Torah, which had a terrible mishap. And it was there when he was walking on the road, this gentleman saw him and wanted to grab him. But of course, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma realized something is awry over here. What person is going to hire another rabbi unless they interview him? And if that's not enough, Stephen, because you felt maybe this guy recognized Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma as a great Jewish leader, but they shouldn't have said, be a rabbi in our place, bimkomeinu, instead of us. Which is a reason why Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma didn't say hi to the guy in the first place. So again, there's a lot of ways sort of how to push around the story and to ask ourselves exactly when in Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma's life this happened. So there's a lot of, I don't know if one side is correct, but what I get from this story is that a community cannot absolve themselves from being Jewish because they hired a great rabbi. And what I also get from this place is a rabbi should not just take the biggest financial package from the synagogue and convince himself, well, this is best for me and my wife and my children. You have to do what's right. So it's coming from the side, from the angle of the rabbi, and also this Mishnah is teaching us the angle from the community. That the community members have to be wholeheartedly invested in the rabbi and what the rabbi represents. And the same thing is reversed with the rabbi. The rabbi has to be invested in Judaism and not with the greatest, financial package, salary package. I think that's the way we can learn it. Did Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma end up going to that town or not? As we explained, it's somewhat up for debate. Perhaps he did, near that small town of Rome near Tiberias. Perhaps he didn't, because the community didn't want to take it, So that's all up for debate. And as we say in Torah, there are 70 ways how to learn a piece of Torah. And really, we can take it any way we want, as long as the conclusion is consistent with our Torah values. Now it's 11:07 for my good friend Uzi, definitely past his bedtime, but I'm happy that he listened in. And perhaps, Uzi, you can share on this chat or with me, and I'll share it with them, your Torah class that you give on Sundays. Perhaps some of my friends, 5:30 p.m. will have an easier time logging onto your class. Thank you everyone for coming to our class, and we'll pick up this class in a few weeks around the high holiday times. Go ahead, Uzi.
I'm not sure. Did you want me to say something now? I'm not sure
Can,
exactly.
no, I asked you if you can send perhaps, put on your chat, on my chat, your website link. If anyone wants to follow you with some of your classes that you do as well on Sundays. You don't have to do your whole Zoom link, but maybe you have a website or something, or
Well,
or an email.
Down, but here's what I'll do. On the chat, I'll put in